keep me a co-host.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay. All right. So, welcome, dear all, to EWB Thursday series of webinars. And for the fifth year in a row, we are conducting this platform. We are conducting Thursday webinar platform to bring English language professionals around the globe and also local professionals, and to make this platform really productive in terms of sharing the latest trends in English language teaching, as well as bringing the first-hand experience from our specialists and experts in the field who have quite different experience and also global expertise in English language teaching. And today we are so excited to welcome Heidi Faust, and we've been in touch with Heidi for quite a long, and today we are very happy to welcome her to this platform, to EWB Thursday webinar. And she's going to talk about exploring the 6 principles for exemplary teaching of English learners. And just for those of you who don't know about our speaker, let me share some bio. Heidi Faust, PhD, is a Grants, Projects, and Partnerships Officer at TESOL International Association. Yeah, the same TESOL, which works globally. And we are very honored to welcome Heidi today. And she oversees international English language teaching capacity building programs and professional learning partnerships. She has recently led projects in India, Peru, the Dominican Republic, and Turkmenistan, as well as in Uzbekistan. She has been quite a focal point in English-speaking nation program. Yes, for secondary teacher training program in Uzbekistan, which reached over 15,000 teachers across the country. And she has also developed and facilitated online and in-person professional learning programs with teachers from more than 100 countries. Unbelievable. Great job, Heidi. And she led the development of the TESOL methodology course offered by the University of Maryland, Baltimore County as part of the U.S. Office of English Language Programs Open Program. Heidi is also an English language specialist for the U.S. Department of State, and she has taught multilingual learners of English from primary to adult levels. She holds a bachelor's degree in special education and elementary education and a master's degree in TESOL and PhD in language literacy and culture. So quite extensive expertise and, of course, great experience that should be shared through this webinar today. So we welcome everybody to join. So Heidi, please be informed that this webinar not only live streamed through Zoom, but also on Facebook page of English Without Borders. And those who by any circumstances miss today's webinar, they can later watch it on Facebook page or on our YouTube channel. Please, dear all, get involved, and yes, after the presentation, you can address your questions to our expert speaker today. And with great pleasure, I'm giving the floor to Heidi. So Heidi, over to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Nasiba. It's really wonderful to be here and working with English Without Borders. You're doing amazing work. And so from one association to another, we're really glad to have this opportunity to share with all of you today. So thank you for having me. My presentation is on exploring the 6 principles for exemplary teaching of English learners. And the 6 principles is a TESOL framework for working with English learners that is basically adaptable for any content area or any context. And so what we'll show you today is just the basics of the framework, and know that it can go much deeper and more specifically based on the audience that you work with, whether you work with adults, young learners, in K-12, in business English. The 6 principles work throughout those contexts. I'll show you some examples today that are geared more towards maybe working with K through 12 or, primary, secondary, but also some that work with adult learners. And so first, I'd like to tell you a little bit about myself. I am from the United States in the state of Pennsylvania, which is a beautiful state. It's my favorite state. And you can see it's on the East Coast, very close to New York and not far from Virginia, which is where TESOL is located. Where I live, there's a lot of farmland, and my family has a Christmas tree farm, so that was their family business. And I have a really big family. We get together pretty regularly, which is important to us. Cousins, aunts, uncles, we know each other and we're pretty close. And I've got two little kitties who are my coworkers who may possibly make an appearance. We never know when they may come visit. And so they are my buddies all day long working from home. So let's think a little bit about the six principles and we'll do a little warm up. What I'd like you to think about is what is essential when teaching English as an additional language? And how do you make sure your students are achieving these essential things? So you might want to share your ideas in the chat. What do you think is important when teaching English as an additional language? Passion for teaching, love for learners. Yeah, absolutely. And so the six principles are going to put the learners right in the center of everything. Teaching methods, right? Lifelong learning, being a professional, absolutely. These are all really important things that we want to keep in mind. Okay. The love of teaching, being responsible to your students. Great. So we're seeing a lot about professionalism and about learners. And that's really important because learners are the core of the six principles. So let's move on and take a little bit of a look at the six principles vision. And so the six principles brings to life underlying connections between TESOL's core values, standards, professional learning, and our publications. And we do have several publications on the six principles related to adults, young learners, primary students, and also business English, and soon technology. These are universal guidelines drawn from decades of research, and they're a foundation for teachers to be successful working with English learners across any program type. So the first role of the Young Learners Framework is really, that principle is to know your learners, to understand who your learners are. So let's learn a little bit about you. When you hear a statement that is true for you, give a thumbs up or use the heart reactions so that we know that this is true for you. How many of you work in primary or secondary public schools? If this is true for you, give a thumbs up or a heart. How about working at a university? If this is true, give a thumbs up or a heart. Or you can also type in the chat. How many of you have been teaching for at least 5 years? Give a thumbs up or a heart. How about teacher trainers? How many of you are working in teacher training or teacher education? Okay, great. And how many of you have heard of the six principles before? Okay, good. If we do this activity with students in the room, we might have students stand up, look around, make a connection. Same thing with when you're training teachers, is to give them a chance to see other people with similar interests or similar experiences. You can use this with interests and hobbies and lots of different things as a way to get to know each other. Okay. So let's move on to the six principles. And here we have the six principles and the six principles logo. And so the six principles starts with principle one, know your learners. And you can see that it is in the center of the model. Knowing your learners is the most important part of the six principles framework and the most important part of your teaching. You need to know your learners so that you can create impactful lessons and adapt those lessons for them. And so that's always in the center. You'll see also that principle six kind of holds it all together. And that is engaging and collaborating in a community of practice and advancing your own learning and collaborating with colleagues as part of your profession. And so those are big important structures in the six principles. And those are things that came out in your understanding of what's essential. So you already know that these are important. So principle one, know your learners. Principle two, we're going to create conditions for language learning. Principle three, design high quality language lessons. Principle four, we're going to adapt that lesson delivery as needed because we know our learners and we know what works for them and what they need. Principle five, we're going to monitor and assess their language development as we go, not just at the test at the end, but all throughout the lesson all the time. And again, principle six, engage and collaborate in a community of practice. And that's exactly what English Without Borders does. It creates a community of practice, and all of you are collaborating and participating in it. And so we know that you're already engaging in the six principles every day. So as we think about core values and best practices in English language teaching, we also consider multimodal literacy development. And so in the old days, we used to focus on teaching, maybe we're teaching listening or teaching speaking, teaching writing. But now we work on those interconnected skills. So listening, speaking, reading, writing multimodally, but then also we incorporate visuals, so auditory opportunities for language, kinesthetic opportunities for language. So here you see some examples with digital tools. You can see that now students might be able to read and listen to a text at the same time. They can see pictures that go with the text. So that's a multimodal literacy approach. Students may be writing and thinking and then communicating with each other, and they might be integrating technology at the same time. So that's one aspect of language we want to consider. We also want to consider the value of multilingualism. And TESOL advocates for multilingual learning and seeing students' languages and their linguistic resources as an asset. And so we might include things like translanguaging in our classes. Translanguaging means basically using all of their linguistic tools as they learn. So using home language, using different languages if they speak more than one, including the languages of the nation and the languages of their communities and homes, as well as English. So this can be used to support their comprehension It can be used to provide opportunities to practice their linguistic skills academically. It can honor their knowledge and things that they already know and support their identities, their multilingual identities, and social emotional development. So we don't advocate for English only. We really focus on honoring the multiple linguistic resources students have. So coming back to the model now, we'll go through each of the principles with those things in mind, starting with number one, which is always the center, the heart. Know your learners. So teachers should know their learners and gain basic information about them and leverage their backgrounds and bring those backgrounds into the classroom. So here's an activity that you can do with your learners, and we'll do it now, is to consider fun with adjectives, right? Students can choose an adjective that describes them that starts with the same sound as their first name. So we want you to know students' names, right? Knowing students' names is really important. It's part of knowing your learners and who they are. And then also, we want to know a little bit about them and what they would like to share about themselves. So, my example is Happy Heidi because I'm a happy person. These are some examples from teachers we've worked with before: Intelligent Iqbal and Royal Rachna. And so, teachers were sharing with us a little bit about themselves. And we had a lot of fun. We built community and we got to know each other. And you can have some fun with your students as well. So please feel free to add your name and adjective in the chat. So I see Noble Nasiba. Very good. You are noble. So that's a great example. Anyone else like to share their name and adjective that goes with their name? Shining, Sayora. I love it. This really gives us insight into our friends and colleagues and the students that we work with. Okay, nice, Leah. Okay, Leah, good adjective. You may want to start your adjective with the same letter as your first name. So maybe something like lovely Leah or okay, marvelous Munavar, talented Sabita. Super, super. Okay, thank you for sharing. And this is just one way to get to know your learners and become part of the community with them. Another thing that we'd like to know about our learners is the characteristics of specific age groups. And if you go to the QR code, you can actually find a handout that has some characteristics of each of these student groups, going from pre-primary or pre-K, where students' bodies are just beginning to develop and their mind is very open and forming connections all the time. They have a lot of energy and they need really short activities because they have short attention spans. As students' brains and bodies and cognitive ability and physical development and social development grows and changes, the way that they learn and the kinds of activities that we have for them change as well. So what works for adults doesn't work for students in lower primary grades. And so we need to know our learners and their development as well. Our adults will be very focused on their goals. They'll need information they can use right away. Where students in pre-primary, lower primary are going to need to learn through play and activity with short activities, not so much sitting, but more physical activities as well. Students who are teenagers are going to be a little bit more self-conscious, more noticing members of the opposite sex. And so boys and girls may be a little less comfortable around each other or more interested in each other. All those things play into how we teach. So knowing our learners' characteristics is also really important. Okay, so how can we use this information about students in the classroom? We can bring in their own life experiences. They can learn to talk about themselves and their lives and what makes things interesting to them, because maybe they'll be more interested in using English when they're able to express something that's important to them. We can carefully select language strategies that are specific to their needs, place them in the correct classes, and build activities based on their interests and goals. So all this is very important. Okay, so we're going to move on to principle 2. We're going to create conditions for learning. There are some necessary conditions that sometimes we can or cannot support. Like their physical capacity, their motivation, their emotional conditions, their access to usable input and feedback, and also how much time they practice. But beneficial conditions are also things that teachers can really support and utilize. So, how closely related is their first language or second or third to English? And are there connections we can make? Maybe some cognates or maybe some similar grammatical structures that we can make connections between. Their oracy and literacy skills are beneficial in their first language. So if students have strong first language, they're able to have a stronger second, third, or fourth language. So we want them to really develop those linguistic skills in all languages. Do they read a lot? That's something that also helps them learn language. Additional language learning supports this and also cultural knowledge. Also, as we create conditions for language learning, we want to reduce student anxiety and develop trust. We want to demonstrate high expectations for their success and motivate them. Part of motivating them is through having an important relationship with them, which is why we want to know them. We want to build a community in our classrooms. We want to have fun learning language. So, some reflection questions we might consider as we create these conditions for learning is, what are some ways to create a positive, organized classrooms where students feel happy and comfortable? How do you demonstrate that you have high expectations of all students? Okay, all students, not just the students who are raising their hands and participating, but how do we bring them all in and help them to grow their linguistic skills? And how do you plan lessons that motivate students? So we're going to talk a little bit about that as we get into principle 3. So designing high quality language lessons. Here's 7 elements of a high quality lesson. We should have clear objectives, right? Both for content and for language. And we should know what the learning outcomes should be. Why are we doing this activity? We should tell the students why. We should use learning strategies to help them to access and engage with the language, build academic language, and help them expand how much language they can produce and how specific that language is. We're going to differentiate instruction for learners with different needs and abilities and interests, and also scaffold that learning. So providing supports along the way that work for all learners. So we're going to do another little activity, and this is something that you could do with your students. You would change the words. So this activity is specific to 6 principles. but you can use the concept with any content. So we're going to read the vocabulary words in each box. Think about how they connect to the 6 principles. Choose one word and find a related word and tell how they connect. So let's look at this example. This is kind of a scavenger hunt, if you will. We'll look at these different words. And normally, if you were in the classroom, I would have you work with a partner and you would review the words, see if there's any words you don't know, help each other figure them out. And then we will make connections. So this is a little bit of an opportunity to use more critical thinking skills. In this case, we're going to make connections. There's no right or wrong answers, but think about which words might go together related to the 6 principles. So as I'm looking at this, I see the word create, and I also see conditions. And I know that principle 2 is to create conditions for language learning. So I think those 2 words go together. Can anybody think of other words that might be a pair that go together? So I'm seeing TESOL and community of practice go together, right? Because TESOL is a community of practice. Collaborate, right? We also collaborate in that community of practice. Great. Also EFL and lesson delivery, right? Because we're going to focus on strong lesson delivery for English as a foreign language. Any other connections that you see? We can see monitor and assess. So we're going to both monitor and assess our students. Very good. We're going to engage our learners. And so this is an activity where students can get support with vocabulary, but also they can go deeper in making those connections. And so what we might do after we've done this scavenger hunt in our pair is one pair of students is going to go talk to another pair of students and share those connections and see if we had any of the same ideas or different ideas. And also see, is there any way that we might help each other or help each other think about something differently? And then I'll usually give my students the answers about the meaning of the words. And so this would be kind of the backside of the handout or something we can share afterwards. Some other connections are coming in. So community of practice and resources. That's a great connection because you can get so many wonderful resources from communities of practice. And that's part of what EWB does and also what TESOL does. Super. Any other connections? Okay, so you can keep them coming in the chat. I'm going to move on because we are at principle 3. 3 more to go. So principle 3, we're going to design high quality language lessons. And so part of that is engaging students like we've done in that activity. Oh, I'm seeing more. So resources like adapting and changing, engaging an assessment, adapting and resources, adapting exemplary resources, and EFL learners. So we're seeing multiple connections. Great. Okay. And so in designing these high quality lessons, we also want to create objectives. And we really need to understand, what do students need to understand when they listen? What do they need to say when they speak? What do they need to comprehend when they read? Or what do they want to write about? And what language do they need to do it? So we want to support students by helping them with sentence frames, with helping them to understand um, what they need to produce. We want to model it. And in order to do that, we really need to know what those objectives are. Here's some examples of objectives. Orally name 5 items you need to take on a vacation. Orally compare the weather in your city to the weather in Nairobi. So comparing is a little bit more complicated linguistically than just naming. It takes a different grammar structure. Describe what is happening in a picture of a beach in 5 or more sentences. So now we're moving into writing. Sequence the events of a story as you read about Olga's trip to Soamasina. So we want to make sure that we have some good examples of our objectives. Here's a sample activity that would relate to the objective of being able to tell what is happening in a picture in 3 or more written sentences. And so what are some things that you see happening in this picture, and what forms of language do the students need to use to master this objective? Take a look at this picture. What forms, grammar forms, or vocabulary do students need in order to write sentences about this picture? Present progressive, great. So some examples of what are they are doing in the picture. We could say they're sitting outside. They're embroidering. They are laughing or smiling. Great. They're chatting. Super. We can be more specific. The girls are chatting. They're enjoying their hobby. Great. Super. And so we want to know what language students need to produce so we can model it for them and we can help them practice it. So we might write some sentences together and then have them practice in pairs and then have them practice on their own before we would test them, right? But we might be observing them all the way through in order to see where they need some help. Oh, great. Another example, the girls are working together. Super. Okay. So principle 4 then takes us into adapting lesson delivery. And so if students have gotten the lesson and they know the objectives, but maybe they're not doing so well in writing those sentences, we need to check their comprehension frequently, and we need to make some adjustments as needed. And so this is really important. Teachers sometimes have a textbook and there's an activity in the book, but we don't just do the activity in the book, we're also going to adjust what we do with that activity because we want students to make sure that they understand what they're learning. And so we may go outside the book, we may reuse those activities in different ways. We may have students work in pairs or practice with each other. Lots of different tools to adjust that lesson delivery. A big part of that is checking student comprehension frequently and adjusting instruction in order um, to relate to the student's response. So we might do activities like think, pair, share, where students think, talk to each other, and then share what they are learning, and we can use that as a mini evaluation. Um, they might use response cards like true or false, or yes or no, a thumbs up, a thumbs down, things like that. Okay. As we adapt lesson material, our lesson delivery, we're going to adjust the delivery of information. We might adjust the task, or we might adjust the materials. Some modifications might include modifying the language, making it simpler or more difficult if they're more advanced and they need to stretch. We might use multiple forms of input. So we might use a picture. Maybe we give them some charts to help them. We might give them some sentence frames or model sentences. We're going to adapt for their proficiency levels. So some students may need more supports. Some students, we could take away those supports and let them work more independently. And then scaffolding for equitable access. That means that all students can participate in your class, not just the students who are very motivated or have very strong English skills, but all students should be able to participate and engage. And I like this comment from Nasiba, is that it's culturally relevant content. And that's another way to adapt your lesson delivery. Sometimes you get imported text, and that's not really relevant to the students in your community. Adapt that for their community and for their lives. That's part of that adaptation. And so some of the supports you can have include some teacher supports. So maybe you are using different language, using different examples. You might wait more. You might adapt the task and give more scaffolds. But there might also be material supports, more pictures, more word walls or sentence frames, picture dictionaries. And then social supports. You might have your students work on an activity in a small group with a pair, instead of working alone. And so there are lots of different ways to adapt. And because you know your learners, you're going to know which ways to adapt that are most effective. Principle 5 is monitoring and assessing that language development all throughout. So we want to monitor errors, provide ongoing and effective feedback. And when I say give feedback, help students know where they're doing well and where they need to make a correction. It's not just about quizzes and tests, right? There's a lot of monitoring, assessing, and feedback that should happen before that we take a quiz or a test. So we're always looking at what students are doing and giving them ongoing feedback. And then designing varied assessments to support their learning. So we might give different kinds of feedback, like explicit correction. We may give correction that the student has to think a little bit about what we're saying, like repetition, where the student says something incorrect and then we just repeat it with a question that makes them think, oh, I should fix that. We can use clarifications and metalinguistic questions, elicitations, all kinds of different examples. So very explicit correction if the student is talking about what happens in a science experiment and there's some wood floating on the water and then it sinks. The student says the wood go down in the water. Okay, we know that that should be past tense. We might say, do you mean the wood went down? Right? We're going to give them the answer. But repetition might help the student think more specifically and come up with the answer on their own. So if the student says the wood go down, the teacher might say, the wood go down. Give students time to rethink that. And we can be very deliberate in how we provide that feedback. I mean, that's a whole other workshop we could do. We can also think about the fact that we need formative and summative. Okay. And so formative assessments happening all the time. It's like when you're cooking and you're tasting the food to make sure it's going to be okay. And then you add some more things. That's formative. When you serve it and other people taste it, that's summative. And so often we focus on the summative assessment. We give a quiz, we give a test. But the formative is what helps us with giving that feedback and knowing what students need all throughout. That helps us adapt. Okay, so these are all related principles. We don't want to focus on just one principle, but we're going to focus on all of them as kind of an organized framework for our teaching. So let's take a little quiz. Which principle is at the center of the 6 principles logo and the heart of the framework? Principle 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5? Principle 1. Correct. Know your learners. Right. How about the next one? True or false? Oops, I gave an answer. You should always follow the lesson plan exactly as it is in the book. True or false? Correct. The answer is false. The book is a guideline, but we should always be adapting that instruction to help our learners with what they need. Next question, true or false? Students should use only English in your classes. True or false? False. That's correct. There may be some policies about that, but what we understand is that students bring their whole selves and that their linguistic resources will help them learn English. So we do integrate the first language as appropriate. We do want accountability for learning English and using it, but we also want to encourage students to value their linguistic resources as learning tools and also part of their identity. Okay. Finally, principle 6, and then we'll take some time for questions and answers. Principle 6 is engaging and collaborating in a community of practice. And so engaging in your profession, that can be many things, like not just being a teacher, but also, are you going to conferences? Are you going to webinars like this and advancing your learning? Are you writing articles and blogs? Are you delivering professional development webinars as a presenter? Are you working to collaborate on English policy or materials development? There's so many things you can do to engage in your profession and collaborate with colleagues. Everything at TESOL International Association is done by and for members. So all of these books, these were written by TESOL members, TESOL teachers, just like you. Their vignettes and these stories in this book are all submitted by real teachers contributing to the field. So you also can engage in your profession. Engaging in reflection on your teaching is also part of engaging with your profession. Reading articles, writing them, joining book clubs. There's just so many opportunities to engage in your field. And then also reflecting on your own teaching. Do you greet your students regularly when they enter class? Do you show them you believe that they can learn at a high level? You could do your own checklist and see if you are meeting some of the 6 principles. And you can work with a colleague who might observe you and talk with you about that as well. Okay. You may have additional roles like being a resource for your colleague, being an advocate for your students. That's one thing that TESOL International student does a lot is to advocate for English learners and teachers in the field based on research and best practices. And we influence policy, national policy and global policy. We develop materials for other teachers to use. And TESOL has things like um, a teacher resource center. And all of those activities and lesson plans, teaching tips have been submitted by teachers around the world for other teachers to use. So creating resources that you can share is part of Principle 6. Okay, so coming back, here are the 6 principles. Again, in the beginning, in the middle, the most important thing is knowing your learners, and holding it all together is engaging in that community of practice as a professional. And then designing those quality lessons, creating those conditions for learning, adapting and monitoring. That goes on as a cycle throughout all of your teaching. And it's all held together with knowing your learners and being part of the community of practice. And so we can think a little bit about how this might be important for your own teaching, how you can use it in your context. And then there's some information here on how to join TESOL. And also, if you'd like to get in touch with me or provide any feedback, you can use the QR code, and information on the book and our website for the 6 principles, which has some resources. And so now I think we can take some time for Q&A, if that works. Nasiba?
Yep. Thank you so much. It was really informative, engaging, and also interesting webinar. And your presentation was very insightful. Thank you so much. And yeah, let's open the floor to questions and answers. Dear all, if you have any questions, you can unmute yourself and ask your questions, or if your mic doesn't work, you can just type your questions in the chat box. And also those who are watching us on Facebook, please, yes, put your questions in the comment box so we'll pass them to our speaker. And once again, Heidi, that was fantastic. Thank you so much. We usually call these kind of webinars as investment time into professional development because we believe a small step a day brings more success in a long way, in a long run, and we welcome everybody's participation in such kind of webinars. So just a quick question to you, Heidi. So one of the participants is asking if the book that you showed is available for free download, or it's available only just for on Amazon or on TESOL bookstore.
Yeah, it is available for purchase. We
Mhm.
have a digital version and the hardcover book. We have one for multilingual learners that are young learners. I don't know if you can see
Yeah,
this
yeah,
one.
yeah, we can see
Joan
that. Yeah.
Kingston, her team is for primary. This is K through 12. This is a little bit more US focused. We have
Mm-hmm.
one for teaching adults. We have one for workplace English. We're
Mm-hmm.
just developing one on technology. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and members of TESOL get a 20% discount. But on our TESOL 6 Principles website, we do have some free resources and videos that people can use. And I will also send you a handout that you can post that has a summary of each of the principles and some of their like sub categories. And I'll post that scavenger hunt activity and also that checklist. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and the learner profiles as well. So you can have that as a resource to share.
Okay, yeah, that's amazing. Thank you so much. Just
Mhm.
another question from my side, since the rapid growth of technology and AI, yeah, emergence in our life. So, to what extent do these books reflect the AI, incorporation in our life?
In theory, they reflected in the terms of knowing your learners, knowing that they're in technology, that your context is growing. And so adapting all those things naturally would lend itself to incorporation of technology and AI. We just had a call for the authors to develop a technology and AI related six principles book, and they're reviewing the proposals right now. So that book is coming out. And what I love about that is that call came out to the field. It came
Mm-hmm.
out to teachers to say who knows technology, who can write about this. And so part of being, part of a community of practice is that we can tap into the expertise of different people for different things. And I
Mm-hmm.
think you can do that with your students. Sometimes our students know technology better than us. And
That's
they can
true.
be the teachers. Like they could come in and say, here's how we could use AI for English, or, there's a lot of opportunity in building that learning community, not just with teachers, but with your students and bringing their assets into the classroom. And
Mm-hmm.
so definitely there's lots of connections to AI. And I also think that AI is really great in helping us adapt. So if our textbooks are not culturally aligned, we
Mm-hmm.
might be able to scan an activity and say, make this appropriate for a learner at this level who's in Central Asia, right?
Mm-hmm.
Make the pictures appropriate to Central Asia. Make the language level appropriate to my students. So AI can help us adapt for learners who maybe need more support. And it can also help us adapt for learners who are advanced. So we
Mm-hmm.
have students maybe who are watching lots of TV or listening to YouTube or listening to things on their phone, and they come in and they're ahead, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that can be challenging as we differentiate. AI can help us differentiate for students' different levels and different interests and help us create materials for free in a low resource context, which is really an amazing gift, I think, at this to be able to teach in this time with AI when we can just create pretty much anything we want to online.
Yeah.
Really, it's super.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like I was also just, thinking about like, yeah, we have so many great material developers and like, since AI is just, doing things much faster and
Mhm.
like, have more kind of data in themselves. So how would these material developers further, you know, kind of promote their work? That was another question because I believe that in TESOL this could be also another challenge.
I think it's a challenge and it's an opportunity because
Mm-hmm.
AI is imperfect. And so
Mm-hmm.
you still need a really skilled person to look at it and say, this doesn't work for my students, or this is awkward, or, I can create this, but I need to give it a really good prompt. And so you still need the human brain and guidance to create what's appropriate. But also, once you create it, you can share it in these communities of practice. TESOL, for example, has 21 communities of practice that are different interest sections. We have some for researchers, some for higher education, for K through 12 primary students, for multilingual learners. We have a whole community just for materials developers. And these communities are, open to all the members. So when I was a member, I joined all of them. I was in 21 communities. And, I'm not a materials developer by profession, but I would go in there and see what they were doing and I would learn about it. And some of these books, teachers are writing these books. Teachers are authors. And TESOL and EWB, like these are great communities for teachers to be able to take what they've made and share it with others. It could be shared in newsletters. It can be shared in webinars like this. So this content's going to be on YouTube and Facebook for people to learn from going forward. So right here, you're creating material. So I think being part of that community of practice is a great way to share. And don't be shy. Every teacher has got great ideas. And we're probably doing the same thing as some other teacher, some other part of the world. And so they might be really grateful for that little activity you created. Share it.
All right, thank you so much. So, dear all, if there anybody, yeah, any last minute questions, you still can ask your questions. So, uh, yeah, Heidi, this book is just so appealing. I mean, just if there any opportunity, just to make at least like to download the PDF version for some kind of fee, that would be great. Also because some of our participants would be willing to have a copy of that, even the e-copy.
Absolutely. And you go to tsol.org and just go to I believe it's under professional learning and go to TESOL Press. And so you can just go to the bookstore and order directly online a digital copy and get a PDF. And so, and there's also there are lots of resources on that Six Principles website as well.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you. So, we see, yeah, so many people joined from different parts of the world, and that's because Haiti is so well recognized everywhere. Yeah, and then of course, like, yeah, having such an extensive work experience, and also just, uh, being professional globally, it tells more about your expertise in different countries. So and also thank you, dear all, for joining today's webinar. And if there are any last minute questions, please, dear all, you can unmute yourself and ask your questions. Heidi, thank you for your time. We really appreciate that amidst your busy schedule, you found time to join this webinar, and also just bring fresh from TESOL, fresh products and fresh publications. We really appreciate that. And of course, in the future, we will be very much happy to see you in Tajikistan. And of course, and I believe like so many people know about TESOL because we always relate in EWB activities to TESOL, but having a person from TESOL headquarter in Tajikistan would be another benefit for all the educators in Tajikistan. Yeah, thank you so much once again, Heidi. It was really enjoyable to have this webinar with you, and we look forward to have more in the coming years. Thank you. Yeah, and
Pleasure. Thank you, Nasiba, and thank you everyone for coming and keep doing the great work that you're doing at AWB. It's exactly principle. You're a living principle six and embracing all of the others as well. And so that's really great to see.
yeah, thank you so much. And we usually try to do our best to track, what's going on TESOL, just also to reflect it locally. Thank you so much, Heidi, and all. Thank you so much for joining. We will be happy to see you over and over at EWB Thursday webinars, and wishing all of you to have a great time of day, because I know somebody is having morning, somebody is reaching evening. So anyway, thank you so much, and we wish you to have a great a great weekend. Thank you.
So much. Take care, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Bye bye.